The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
In the Idaho Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, we have a right to life, we have a right to defend life.
This legislation is centered on meeting the needs of Idaho families.
And we have no way to maintain control over the spending of this program, and it will be a disaster for this state long term.
But we have a whole gamut of kids whose parents would like to do something for them and they cannot.
The courts have long held that our ability to transfer title on real property benefits society as a whole.
This is simply about putting it out of reach of young, innocent, vulnerable children and making our libraries and schools a safe place for them to go.
And I am increasingly frustrated that we cannot stop ourselves from drinking at the public trough.
He's sounding the alarm. He's saying if we don't address these issues, we potentially might have greater problems moving forward.
I feel like we're back to an unappointed board that gets to decide who is essential and who is non-essential.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
We're supposed to be bottom-up government. We're supposed to be representing my citizens' ideas and your citizens' ideas, and we're supposed to be discussing them and debating them to come to a conclusion.
And for me, it's about a couple things. It's about food security, it's about national security, and it's about preserving American exceptionalism.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
Okay, welcome to Idaho Signal. It is January 11, 2024. My name is Matt Edwards, and it is good to be back here today on a Thursday. This week has been pretty awesome. We've had some fantastic guests. We've had some fantastic replies and feedback from you all. So I really appreciate you sticking with us as the signal becomes stronger. I'm trying to come up with some new good new taglines, but we're here to equalize the narrative as you've seen before when it comes to the scope and the scale of Idaho and the social and political atmosphere that goes on, that when people turn to looking for news or looking for messaging or trying to figure out what is actually going on and what the truth is, that's what we're dedicated here to. So we want to make sure that we are bringing the voice directly to you from the folks that are making the news, like our legislators or activists and concerned citizens across the state. So I'm super pleased to welcome to the program this morning Representative Dale Hawkins. Dale is out of Legislative District 2, which is one of the larger districts. It goes all the way up, into parts of Kootenai County, down into, I guess he'll tell me which is the most further south, South County. But Representative Hawkins, welcome to the program. Give us a little bit of a scope of where your district lies.
Well, thanks, Matt, for having me on. So we actually start in Bonner County, all the way up by Heather Scott's house, Representative Heather Scott, and then it goes all the way into Clearwater County. And if you drive from Bonner County positions all the way down there, it's about a 5-hour drive to get from one end to the other. So it encompasses 5 counties. So there's Clearwater, Benawa, Shoshone, 8 precincts in Kootenai County, and then the small portion of Bonner.
Fantastic. Okay, well, you came blazing into the State House last session, and you championed a bill that basically outlawed ranked choice voting in Idaho. And now we're seeing ranked choice voting and open primaries on this initiative that's being circulated across the state, trying to gather signatures so we can move into either a ranked choice voting or an open primary scenario. So before we get to the initiative, can you kind of explain what you all passed and what you championed last session?
So we did. We carried, and the party had sent out early on the desire that we needed to get ahead of this as we saw it coming into other states. So we actually brought the bill that, and if I'm recalling right, it's 179 that actually prohibited ranked choice voting or instant runoff voting from taking place in Idaho. Now we've all learned that that's going to be superseded if this initiative process is successful, which will be a tragedy for Idaho.
So even though you passed a law, this would be an initiative that would be like supersede. So it would be constitutional. They're trying to put it into the Constitution.
Well, it wouldn't go to. Well, I mean, it would become code. It would become law. So right now, these things weren't constitutional amendments. But our initiative process, which I know a lot of people look at it differently, the truth is, the people of Idaho elect representatives to come down here and represent their voice, but most of all, protect their liberties and stop governmental overreach so we can keep being a free people. The initiative process acts as a direct democracy, and then that's where we see these millions and millions of dollars coming in from outside interests, true outside interests, trying to change the political landscape of Idaho.
Right. So then talk to us a little bit about this initiative. We know that there's a large group, in-state group that is using volunteers and paid signature gatherers to basically go across the state in different counties. I guess you can target different counties on where you gather signatures. But what seems to be the process right now?
Well, what they had is they had a signature threshold, and I don't recall the number. It might have been, I don't want to guess and get it wrong, but so they had to go to just a limited amount of areas, in counties. So we tried to change that as well last time when we weren't successful. So they can pick out just a few of the largest populated areas, pay people to gather signatures, reach their signature threshold, and then they'll give this to the Secretary of State. Those signatures will be certified, and this will wind up on the 2024 ballot. And at that time, we will have the chance to inform the Idaho people how bad this will be for Idaho. I mean, essentially, you do this, it eliminates, as a Republican, eliminates my ability to align myself with a party and just makes this open jungle primary that I don't think people understand what's really going to happen. And not only does it do that, it changes the aspect of the November election. So where we're guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution a Republican form of government, this comes in and actually alters that because, it's one man, one vote, one person, one vote. But this now, you'll go in and depending on the parameters, you'll go in and check your first choice, your second choice, your third choice, your fourth choice. And it's very convoluted, but they know the reason they're doing this is they know somebody like me or even you, Matt, you go into a voting booth and you see somebody that that stands for your principles and you check that box. And these other folks are you're never going to check their box. Well, in an instant runoff system, what happens is that your vote will go through the first round. If nobody gets 51%, the machine automatically shuffles all that votes. It drops off the lowest voter, and then it does it again. But your ballot is now spoiled and cast aside. So it keeps reducing because nobody like you or I are going to check the box. If Kamala Harris was running in Idaho, we're not checking the box. It's just that simple.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I would never say that she would be my last choice. She's no choice. I would never put. Yeah. Talk about disenfranchisement where you say, well, you didn't vote for the plural, the 50 plus one person. So your vote is cast aside. That is un-American. And I'm really glad that I said this yesterday, Idaho is we get to pay attention to what's going on across the country. And when we see it, we are very good. You guys are very good at saying, that that's not going to come here. And then you get ahead of the game and start writing legislation to stop that stuff. Of course, you get pushback all the time. It says, well, that's not happening here. You're putting the cart before the horse. You're solving you're offering a solution with no problem because that doesn't happen in Idaho. But those are snake oil salesmen to me words.
Very interesting, Matt. Usually that is the term you hear, but when this came forward, there was very little pushback, and that normal, well, why are you doing this? Do you see anything? Comes up. This time it was silence. Now in the House, it passed pretty much down party lines. I think that there was maybe 2 people on our side of the aisle that voted against it. In the Senate, it went right down party lines. But I found out since the silence was because there were many who knew that in 2022, the groundwork for this was already being laid. They already knew it was coming. This wasn't in response to anything that we were doing or anything that was going on. This was something that they were bringing to Idaho, no matter who was in the legislature, because they want control. They don't want the Republican Party to have a closed primary because they want to come in and thin out the people that are conservative and replace us all with Marxist moderates.
Yeah, I can't follow that up. I'm just going to let those remarks hang there for for a bit. I know you're busy down there. Would you mind be able to stay over one more segment?
I can do that.
Okay, great. So we will we'll hit the break here, and we'll be right back with Representative Dale Hawkins.
There's a saying in Idaho: Esto perpetua. It is forever. But the truth is, nothing lasts forever. Not without a fight. The Gem State is ours to fight for. It is ours to win. For life and liberty. For honesty and integrity. We ride together.
Okay, we are back with Representative Dale Hawkins. Dale, when it comes to, one last thing on the initiative, if it does pass and if it gets on the ballot and if the voters vote for it, is there any recourse that the legislature can take once an initiative does pass?
Yeah, we could put forth legislation to overturn it. I know that this has been done before in Idaho. I don't remember what year it was, but an initiative came forward. The people said they wanted term limits, which I don't think that I would disagree with. But the legislature did overturn that. So we do have the ability to do that. Even if it makes it through, we know that they're going to get the signatures. If it makes it all the way through and it winds up on the ballot, we can have one last attempt to stop it in the legislature. The difficulty in that, Matt, is it'll happen after the next election. So it is so important that people get out and vote, find out who's in their area that's running, that holds to these principles of a Republican form of government and the protection of our liberties and our freedoms. Because if we lose people, well, Idaho's just going to follow the way of the rest of the coastal places. So,
yeah, that's the big concern of a lot of folks, and there's a lot of. Idaho has seen a huge influx of people that have come from those types of places, even prior to COVID. But COVID and the pandemic really sent a lot of people flocking to greener pastures and freer pastures, and so we definitely need to preserve that. Can you explain to me how important it is that a private political party like the Democrat Party or the Republican Party or any number of these other constitutional, libertarian, green, how important it is for them to have their own nominee be selected among the group of people that associate with that particular party, that ideology? The people out there screaming that you're disenfranchising them because they're not allowed to vote in the Republican Party when they don't believe in the platform. Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah. So, and you use the right word, associate. So we have a right of association. There was a time in Idaho where there were no closed primaries, and the party, the Republican Party itself, fought for that and won at the Supreme Court level of the Idaho Supreme Court. So this is so essential, this right of association. This is our ability to gather as a private organization, as all organizations are. The Democrat Party is a private organization. The Libertarians are, the Constitutional. They're all private organizations that gather once a year and put forth the candidate they have chosen. Now, these other organizations, if they choose to have an open primary, that's their business. But the Idaho Republican Party has chose to have a closed primary because we're a closed organization. And the violation of this is, well, it's sort of like, the Rams calling the shots for the board of directors for the Raiders. I mean, in those terms, everyone would say, well, that's ridiculous. The opposing team, if they make the decisions, that makes the opposing team win automatically. Well, that's what they're fighting for. They're fighting to come into our party and make our decisions for us.
That's what it sounds like. Great. Well, Representative Hawkins, let's shift gears. What are some of the bills that you're working on? What can you preview for us in your ventures there? Because I want to make sure that people understand what you're working on, how we can support you, and get behind your efforts.
So I'm not one of the legislators down here that carry an armful of bills. I'm looking for stuff that we can undo or stop, but that doesn't mean that I don't have some. I do have a school choice bill that I'm going to try to get heard. It's a tax credit bill. There's another one in the system that isn't necessarily terrible, but it's just not as good. So I'm going to take mine to Rev and Tax. It's a tax credit version of a universal choice school bill, and it'd be opened up. It doesn't have caps. It has a good amount for every student, and it would be available to anyone who chooses to use it. Obviously these things aren't forced on anybody. And other than that, I have some other bills that deal with, well, some of this is delicate, so, I'm not sure. But sometimes if we let the cat out of the bag too early, the opposition gets the word too quickly. But I will say, there's some issues with teachers' unions that we're going to look at and see if we can't make some inroads there, because most people, even in education, think that maybe in Idaho, which is a right-to-work state, that these unions have crept into other areas that they might not have any place in, and the state might be aiding in those areas, and we can put an end to that.
Yeah. Well, I know you champion fiscal responsibility and all these, great political buzzwords that are out there, but you're a principled guy. And as I've gotten to know you over the last couple of years, I've really enjoyed watching, when you stand up in the House in the well there and deliver some comments, they're so on point. They're so precise. We use one of them. We use one of those clips in our opening montage. How is it, walking around the Capitol? I mean, you're an imposing figure when you meet, when you stand in front of yourself. What is the sense when you're, what are the relationships like down there? How are you working in this second term or this second session?
Everybody, keeps it pretty good. I mean, everybody's got a good business attitude. We stay friendly and you try to work with everybody that you can. Obviously, there's just some folks that you don't have anything in common, but that doesn't mean you don't be polite. On the cause of fiscal responsibility, as everyone else in the state who was paying attention saw Monday, we had to endure a speech that just said, I want to spend, and after I've spent, I want to spend some more. And so right now we're all scrambling, trying to figure out how we put some holes and stop that, because everybody I meet in Idaho is running out of money, and we're living in a system that seems to, every time they turn around, they want more. When you and I go over budget, we have to use money from something else or just don't get what we want. It seems here there's this thought that if you run out of money, you just take more from the people.
Yeah, that's the truth. Okay, Representative Hawkins, thank you for staying with us. How can people follow you? Where can they get in touch with you to support your efforts?
So, first of all and foremost, I'm ashamed that I haven't said it, that the Idaho State Freedom Caucus is my mainstay there. We put out a Substack jointly inside that put out many times a week. But I have a website that's DaleHawkinsForIdaho.com. My email is the same, DaleHawkinsForIdaho@gmail.com. You can look me up on the Capitol directory. It shows my cell phone. I think it even shows my home phone. People can reach out to me, ask questions whenever they want. I do better on the phone. If you text me, I might get it. And if you email me, I will get to it eventually. But feel free, anybody listening, they can reach out whenever they want and ask whatever they want, and I will try to answer best I can.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you, Dale, for being with us, and we hope to have you back.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Great. All right. We will be right back after this with Clean Book for Kids. Clean Books for Kids.
All Idaho lawmakers swear an oath to support the Idaho and U.S. constitutions. But how's that working out for you? Because not all Idaho lawmakers share the same values. That's where the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge comes in. 10 statements inspired by those two founding documents that are designed to preserve our shared values. Values such as education freedom, safeguarding free speech, defending our protected right to self-defense, and being responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. When a lawmaker signs the pledge, they are performing an act of political courage, accepting the challenge to be a champion for our values, and serving with political integrity. To find out if your lawmaker signed the pledge, visit idahopledge.com. Paid for by Citizens Alliance of Idaho. We ride together.
Okay, welcome back. We have a bill that was presented yesterday. This is the library bill that's aimed at trying to protect children from graphic materials that are in the libraries. And if people are telling you they're not in the libraries, well, I've got someone here to coming on who's gonna pound away at that myth that these books do not exist in these libraries. Mariana Cochran is with she is with Clean Books for Kids. You can go to cleanbooksforkids.com to see the work that she's been doing. And Mariana, welcome to the program. Please walk us through first, at least, what Clean Books for Kids is and what you're working on, and then we'll get into this new bill that was presented yesterday.
Certainly. Hey, thanks for the invitation, Matt. Glad to be here. So the short of it is, most people acknowledge the extreme cultural degradation out there, and it's gotten very bad for kids in terms of their books, much more significantly problematic than when I was in school, and then even when you were in school, Matt. And I don't know how young your kids are, but even down to young kids' books, that hypersexualization of kids is everywhere. So first, I want to start off with, it is inarguable that what kids can access via their phones, television, cable TV, movies, etc., streaming is horrid. No one argues that. That's often used as a red herring in this issue regarding kids' books. But what we're talking about, what this bill is talking about, what Clean Books for Kids is addressing, is books for kids, minors. I'm going to use the terms kids and minors interchangeably, that taxpayers are purchasing for public libraries and, of course, in school libraries. So Clean Books for Kids is just a grassroots group of folks who have gone into libraries, delved into the catalogs to identify what's in the collection for kids. And we have posted actual excerpts, photos of graphic novels, actual pages out of those books. So you can see for yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. And perhaps you might think I'm some kind of prudish senior citizen. No, you can look and see for yourself. And I think most people agree that what we've posted on our website are just egregious examples of what is highly inappropriate for minors. And parents can see for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I've gone through this site before, and you cite pages, you cite the excerpts, and you allow people to see where. I think you've shown where they can look in their library, like the links to the library database to see if it's there.
Yes.
Do you all and are these books also found in some school districts as well?
Yes, I'm sorry to say they are. So the list that is on the Clean Books for Kids website is only in reference to the Community Library Network and the Coeur d'Alene Library, which are the libraries within Kootenai County, and then one library out in Shoshone County. So it's just what's represented on Clean Books for Kids, number one, is only a fraction of what's in the collection, because it's what we've been able to find so far. Right. I mean, books are coming in literally every day. The Community Library Network is 7 libraries plus a bookmobile. So they're constantly buying books. Their budget for last year was almost $500,000 for new materials acquisition for adults and kids materials. So there's a significant amount of inflow in addition to the existing collection. So it's just what we found.
And when you say you found, you're literally going in, because you live in Kootenai County, you're literally going into these libraries and seeing them in person.
Yes, I was at one yesterday.
Yeah. And some of these books, the ones that make the headlines, usually are like graphic novels, or they have pictures. And again, I mean, not that this show is meant for children, but we are on in the morning and the daytime. So you never know who's listening. But some of this stuff is, I mean, you had the sheriff of Kootenai County say if one of these books had fallen into the hands of a child, he would have arrested, or he would have taken some sort of recourse investigation as to how that book ended up into a kid's hands. Is that, you're familiar with that when that happened, right?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
I think most people would be shocked. I know I was shocked when I started this 2 years ago of just how degraded these books are, how explicit they are. Here's just one example, Matt, that I came across, and there were several other books by the same author that was in the young adult section of the Community Library Network. All of these flags that I've identified, I read the whole thing. All of these flags are graphic descriptions of, you've got all kinds of, the main characters in this book are 15. So they're having sex with each other, teenagers. They're having sex with adults. They're having group sex. They're having straight sex. They're having gay sex. They're prostituting themselves. So it's horrific. I literally, when I finished reading this book, I wept with sadness for a child who would read this book. And that's just one. And that book would be shelved in a young adult section, or a... Yes, you can see right here on the label that it had a YA, which stands for young adult. Now, due to a significant amount of public uproar, this book was reclassified as an adult book last year, but it was only after there was a huge pushback in the public. In the meantime, how many years, I forgot how old this book was, that it was sitting on the shelf for kids. And I've also found it in school libraries.
Right. Okay, so let's move on to this bill that was presented yesterday. Have you've gotten a chance to look it over a little bit? You can kind of just give me a 50,000-foot view of where you think this bill is, if it's a good start, if it's this total solution, or if it's, where is it from your vantage point?
I don't know that anything can be a total solution, but it's definitely something that's worth passing, because well, first of all, it's ironic that in 1972, so 52 years ago, Idaho's state legislators identified quite explicitly, pun intended, what the definitions are for sexually explicit, obscene material. They laid it out, they described it. But what happened was libraries and schools had an exemption. So what happened was that opened the floodgates for all kinds of horrible stuff to come in. So what this bill does is it essentially removes that exemption. The same definitions are applicable to books in terms of evaluating them. I mean, libraries curate their collection every day. So there's nothing unusual about a library making the decision what to buy. It's not the case that, every library buys anything and anything goes. So this bill just reiterates that in the state of Idaho, we are going to utilize the definitions that have already been outlined and existed for many, many years to to evaluate books in terms of what's in the existing collection. Those books will be moved to the adult collection. And then in terms of future purchases, the libraries will have to use these criteria to evaluate which books they purchase. So there's no book banning that's going to happen. Books would just be moved to the adult collection in terms of what's already there.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that point needs to be made clear. This is not banning books. This is moving them away from children. And anybody
nothing's far-fetched about that.
Nothing is. Yeah. Okay. Give us again exactly how we can help, the website, how we can follow you, how we can stay in touch.
Okay. Clean Books for Kids, the number 4, the website. We have a Facebook page. We have a Telegram page. We have a Nextdoor group. If you go onto the Clean Books for Kids website, you can sign up for notifications about things that we post, everything from developments that the community library makes to something that's in the news to a public comment that our group might make in front of the library board. So this is an ongoing effort. There has been a little bit of progress in Kootenai County. That's good news. There's also some obstacles that we've run into. And that's just Kootenai. We happen to be better off than other parts of the state. So this bill, if it's passed into law, will obviously blanket cover the whole state and really go far and make a huge difference.
Fantastic. All right. Well, this bill is just on its journey. You are, you're just in this county and spreading across the state and getting the word out. So we're going to check back with you often during this this journey of this bill and your efforts to see where you're going, because this is a very important issue. I thank you for your work on this, and I can't wait to have you back.
Great. Thank you, Matt.
All right. Take care. All right, folks, we have a cool guest coming up, so stick around. We'll be right back.
There's a saying in Idaho, Esto perpetua. It is forever. But the truth is, nothing lasts forever. Not without a fight. The Gem State is ours to fight for. It is ours to win. For life and liberty. For honesty and integrity. We ride together.
Okay, we're going to shift gears here a little bit and talk party politics. March 2nd is the GOP presidential caucus. We're no longer having a primary. I'm sure if you're watching this show, you're aware of that. But for those who aren't, we want to make sure that everybody's is up to speed and ensuring that you know exactly what's going to be happening on March 2nd for this GOP caucus. The Democrats are having a caucus as well. But in terms of, when you look at Idaho and who's the largest party that's registered and we know who our audiences are, and we're not kidding anybody. I wanted to talk with Dorothy Moon, the chairwoman of the Idaho State Republican Party. And so we got together earlier, just before the show to discuss it. So let's cut to that right now. With us here with she's the chairwoman of the Idaho Republican Party, and there's a big important event coming up in March. It's the GOP's caucus for president, and I wanted to bring Dorothy in here to help explain how it's all going to lay out there. So Dorothy, welcome to the program. Can you give us your quick pitch on how this caucus works?
Sure, and Matt, thank you for having me on. We definitely want to get the information out to all of our Republican voters who were disenfranchised last year when the primary was removed from statute. So we are having a caucus and we're very excited. It's going to be March 2nd, Saturday. And so everybody needs to mark their calendars right now. And it starts at noon Mountain Time down in most of the state. Up north, it will be starting at 11 a.m. Pacific time. So everybody will be starting opening doors and letting folks come in who are registered for as Republicans for their respective precincts. And those precincts We have 976 of them have all been covered around the state. We are ahead of schedule. We expected to have about 80% by last Saturday, but every precinct is covered. So every Republican has an opportunity to vote for their presidential choice on March 2nd.
That's great. So, okay, so when you say all the precincts are covered, is it traditional, like you have one little polling place per precinct, or they're grouping precincts together in certain areas? How do we find that out?
Well, we have a lot of different scenarios. So in Ada County, there's multiple legislative districts that make up Ada County. And so a legislative district, such as Legislative District 20, will be having an event in one large event center. And all the precincts will be showing up there to go vote. In rural areas, like in Custer County, where I'm from, there will be 3 event centers, one in Mackay, one in Chalice, and one in Clayton, because I live in Custer County. And so each one of the event centers will have a caucus captain. They're the ones who are in charge of making sure the event goes off flawlessly, which they all will. And the caucus coordinator will be the person who oversees multiple venues, like within a county. So we've got all of our coordinators assigned. We have all of our caucus captains assigned, and we have all the venues assigned. Now, what we're going to be doing is tying each Republican voter to the venue they will be voting at. Because in the middle of February, we will be sending out a massive mailer of postcards to every registered Republican to the address that was listed for them in the Secretary of State's voter roster for December 31st. So we will be mailing those out. That is the largest expense for the Idaho GOP, to make sure everybody is aware of where they need to be.
Perfect. Okay, so everybody look out for a postcard or a mailer that will come in February. So that'll have the location on it and maybe some basic instructions. When people show up that day or that morning, so you say the caucus is open all day. Are people voting all day? I mean,
no.
Okay.
No, it's not open all day. It opens at noon. We have a hard start of noon. And that is when people need to be in line ready to go, because things are going to move fast. As soon as that line is gone and everybody has been credentialed to vote, typically it's going to probably take an hour and a half for these larger venues in Ada County, Kootenai, or Bonneville and Canyon counties. However, as soon as those lines are gone, no one else is walking in the door. Probably, again, an hour and a half into the event, then they will lock the doors. They will go and tabulate the ballots. This is called a firehouse caucus. This is nothing like the caucus that we had in 2012, where they were on lockdown, and for hours and hours, they had to keep repeating the vote until someone got a 50% plus one. In this firehouse caucus, it is a plurality. Someone could win 50% plus one or 60%, and then they take all of our 32 delegates. However, it is a plurality. So if a candidate gets 40%, another one gets 40%, another one gets 20%, then they're going to divide up those delegates for the national convention.
I see. Okay. So then let's talk about candidates, because there was news that broke yesterday that Governor Chris Christie bowed out of the race for whatever reason. But he did pay the state of or your party to be on the ballot here. So how will that scenario play out?
Well, we have some money to spend. So every candidate, when they registered to be on our ballot, they had to send in $50,000 and a declaration of candidacy. And once those were verified or deposited into the account, their name officially went on the ballot. So his name will be on the ballot. We will make sure when they go into every caucus location that they know that he is not a viable candidate at that time. The money was non-refundable, so that money will still be applied toward the caucus expenses that we're going to incur.
Okay, great. And then next week is the Iowa caucus, I believe. That's next week. The Idaho caucus, I think, is 4th or 5th in line when it comes to handing out delegates.
It's 5th in line, and we're excited because we're going to be before Super Tuesday. So we are relevant. Idaho is very relevant in this race. And there's well over a week between the last February election for their presidential candidate choice, and we'll have ours. We've got a 10-day window probably where we'll have multiple candidates, we hope, coming to the state to visit with Idahoans.
Oh, that would be fantastic. I can't think of the last time we've seen Republican presidential candidates come to Idaho during at least during a primary or even a general. Has that happened recently?
Well, during the 2012 caucus, there were candidates that came to the state, but
this
is a pretty big primary. That's why we're really excited that the Idaho GOP has pulled together and worked with the the RNC, and we have a plan for this Firehouse Caucus. And when people get misinformation out there, I'm telling you, it's going to be fast. You'll be able to go in and vote if you can only vote, and because you have to leave because you're working that day. But it's on a Saturday. Most people don't work on Saturday like they would on Tuesday. There's been misinformation going out that only one parent with minor children will have to stay at home and watch the children while the other parent gets to go vote. That isn't true. In our rules, we state that minor children can accompany parents so that they can see what voting is all about. So we're excited.
Yeah, no, this sounds really fun. I've never done a caucus before. And from what I understand, you're not using any machines. You're doing paper ballots and counting with human hands and human eyes. Is that true?
That is true. So we're going to have paper ballots, and they will be all go into one box, and then they will go onto a table at the end of the evening, or not evening, afternoon, and they will divide them up by candidate, and they will count them twice. When they have the same number twice, then they're done counting. So it's all going to be, this is what everybody's been wanting. Election integrity is a big issue. Let's have paper ballots and let's have hand count.
Well, this is great. This will be a great test run of what it was like in the old days, right? When that was the norm, when it does come to election integrity. Okay. One final question I have to ask, because, caucus primary, 2020, I'm not to talk necessarily about 2028, but the next time that there would be a presidential primary would be 2028. Do you foresee us going back to a primary? Do you foresee staying with a caucus? What do you think?
Well, I think that the State Central Committee was clear at the Chalice summer meeting when they stated that they wanted to do a caucus instead of a convention since we lost our presidential primary. And one of the conditions is we will not accept a May primary for president, because then we're irrelevant. I believe that would still hold true at our next meeting. It would have been nice had the state asked us, the primary stakeholder, how we felt about it before this legislation was run through to move the primary from March to May, but we weren't. But I hope they will consider how the Republican Party, the majority party in this state, feels about if they make an attempt to put it into May. If we have a great caucus, maybe we should do another caucus in 28. The reason why is because the taxpayers don't have to pay for it. And I think that's a huge benefit. They used this $2.7 million as how much this presidential primary was going to cost. I'm going to do a deep dive into those numbers because bonds and levies were included with that, which are every year, whereas a presidential primary is every 4 years. So I think that number was a little bit inflated, but I do know that we will be pulling off a presidential caucus on March 2nd for under the $300,000 that we've collected from the 6 candidates.
Well, very good. Very good. All right. What are the next important dates that people should look out for? I know they're going to be getting the postcard in the mail in February, but is there anything that people need to do or file, get anywhere?
Well, they've already registered. They should have been registered Republicans by the end of December. And, if they want some more information, they can go to www.idahorepublicancaucus.com for more information on our Firehouse Caucus. That's first and foremost, and they can always call our office. We're staffed 9 to 5 every day of the week. The postcards will be going out the middle of February. They can plan on getting those 10 days to 2 weeks prior to the March 2nd caucus date. And again, if they forget to bring their postcard, don't panic. It's okay. We will find out which precinct book your name is in and get you into the right line. We will have maps up at almost every venue to make sure that they can point out where they live, and then we'll get them into the right line. So we just don't want anybody being, concerned that they're not going to have a chance to vote, but make sure you do have a valid identification card.
Fantastic. All right. Well, Dorothy, thank you again for joining us, and I look forward to having you back, and good luck with the caucus.
Thank you, Matt. I really appreciate the time to share the information with our Idahoans.
Absolutely.
All Idaho lawmakers swear an oath to support the Idaho and U.S. constitutions. But how's that working out for you? Because not all Idaho lawmakers share the same values. That's where the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge comes in. 10 statements inspired by those 2 founding documents that are designed to preserve our shared values. Values such as education freedom, safeguarding free speech, defending our protected right to self-defense, and being responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. When a lawmaker signs the pledge, they are performing an act of political courage, accepting the challenge to be a champion for our values, and serving with political integrity. To find out if your lawmaker signed the pledge, visit idahopledge.com. Paid for by Citizens Alliance of Idaho. We ride together.
We want to thank Dorothy Moon for joining us again. We're going to stay with political party business here. I want to bring on, I've invited the first vice chair, I think I'm going to get this right, the first vice chair of the Ada County Republican Central Committee. And Ada County is its own beast because it was, I don't know, incorporated, or Boise was incorporated before the state of Idaho was around. So they got a lot of funky business that goes on down in Idaho. But Ryan Spoon is here. Ryan, did I get that correct? You're the first vice chair of the Ada County Republican Central Committee? Oh, we don't have his audio here. Can we check your audio there, Ryan? We lost Ryan, or is that me? Is that me, guys? Can you guys hear Ryan?
Oh, how about now?
Hey, there we go.
There we go.
All right, perfect.
All
let
right.
me set that up again. So, first vice chair of the Ada County Republican Central Committee, Ryan Spoon is here. What did I
Yes.
get that right? Is that the right title?
That is, yeah. Most every county has a chair and a vice chair. Ada County is just a little larger than most, with 197 PC slots. So we decided to have 3 vice chairs to help lighten the load a little bit.
Fantastic. Okay, so we just had Dorothy Moon on talk about the caucus from her vantage point as a chairwoman. What is it looking like for Ada County? How are you guys preparing for the caucus on March 2nd?
Yeah, so it's really left up to the legislative districts. The county and the region are assisting, but primarily we are just coordinating between the 11 legislative districts that lie either wholly or partially within Ada County. The district chairs are doing a great job. They report back every month on their progress. And for my own District 20 that I live in, I coordinate closely with my chair, and we have our caucus going on the entire district at one location at Capitol Church, and progress is going ahead.
Excellent. Very good. Okay, so I wanted to have you on primarily to show people, what the process is to get involved in their party. Because a lot of people, not to disparage some, but there are folks that like to sit in the back benches and think that they can call the shots better. And if they can, and some do, because there's a lot of great ideas out there, one of the ways they can step up to do that is to join their central committee, where they have a voice in how the party operates and so forth. So can you walk us through how you got involved in your local party and what you see on the ground there with the grassroots part of your party?
Sure. My involvement was somewhat gradual until COVID. And then, like many of us, I really got woken up by the craziness that went on during COVID. So I became a lot more involved. Briefly ran for office, or nonpartisan office, for the community college down here and found out how much the liberals control those nonpartisan positions. And then I saw a lot of problems in the local party as I was running for office. I said, all right, we got to fix this first, because we can't win on the front lines if we've got people undercutting us behind our back. And so that was when I really got involved, was late in 2022. And within less than a year, we chased off the rhinos that were running the show. And we now have all conservatives in charge of the local party, and things are moving ahead. You may have heard of things like our recent censure or statement of disapproval of the Senate Pro Tem Chuck Winder. And I think you're going to see more actions like that because conservatives are running the show now.
Yeah. And so if there are folks, I mean, have you encountered folks coming up to you and simply not understanding how a central committee works and what your role is in the community?
Absolutely. There's a lot of misunderstanding, and my favorite way to explain it to them is to show it to them. I say, come to our meetings. We have our central committee meeting the first Thursday of every month at the Ada County Courthouse in the commissioner's meeting room. It's open to the public. I invite everyone to come and see. We're not hiding anything. And we want people to get involved. You see a lot of organizational charts, and they'll start with precinct committeemen as the lowest level on how the political structure works. I'd go farther than that. I'd say, let's start with just volunteers. You don't need a title to get involved. Volunteer. And then let those volunteers percolate up to block captains. And I use the biblical model where in the Old Testament talked about people being put in charge of hundreds and tens. I would like to see a volunteer that coordinates with every 10 Republican homes. And if we could get to that goal, that would be fantastic. But volunteers, block captains, then precinct committeemen. A precinct committeeman is going to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 to 900 Republican homes, depending on how conservative of a precinct it is. And that's a lot of people to talk to. So we need help all the way down.
Yes, absolutely. Are there any big issues on the table right now that you guys are focused on within your committee, within your area? We had Dale Hawkins on earlier today talking about ranked choice voting and the open primary initiative, and I know that there are a lot of conservatives and the Republican Party as a whole is opposed to that. But there's definitely some crossover and some rumblings, within the party about that particular initiative. What is your committee doing?
We're working in anti-ranked choice voting into all of our door knocking, all of our outreach efforts on every issue. So if that comes up, regardless of the setting, we are adamantly opposed to rigged choice voting. It is very inappropriately named. They call it open primaries. It's nothing of the sort. It's a blanket primary or a jungle primary. And it's not ranked choice voting, it's rigged choice voting. There's everything from throwing out votes to confusing ballots to being easier to commit ballot fraud, you name it, up and down the line. Rigged choice voting and jungle primaries are bad for Idaho. And we are working against that open primaries initiative, the jungle primaries initiative, in all of our outreach efforts.
Excellent. You're down in Ada County. That's also where the Capitol building is and the State House. So you guys got a little bit more of a touch on what's happening moment to moment than some of us up here in the North. But anything excite you about this year? Any bills that you maybe personally are looking at or championing and wanting to see the party succeed in?
Absolutely. The one that I'm most immediately excited about in the past 24 hours is the resurrection of the Child Safe Protection Act, or the Anti-Porn in Libraries Act, brought forward by Representative Jaron Crane. And one of the major votes in the House that upheld the governor's veto was one of our representatives here in Ada County. And the party was silent as they went against conservative values. They went against the Republican Party platform, and we had different leadership at the time, and they just enabled and coddled these supposedly Republican legislators that vote liberal, and we're not going to tolerate that anymore. And I think that you're going to see, if any, Ada County Republican legislator votes in favor of keeping porn in libraries, you can expect some very strong condemnation, maybe outright censure of those representatives.
Got it. Okay. Well, before I ask you how people can get involved, I want to point out what is that flag or banner that you have behind you?
Yeah, behind me here is the family flag. This promotes the traditional nuclear family. God's design for the traditional nuclear family, one man, one woman, plus their children, is the bedrock for everything that is successful about Western society and the world as a whole. Every time that humans have thrived, it has been built around the traditional nuclear family. Liberals love to shout and shove our faces in what they're proud about. That's fine. I think that's not a terrible idea. I'm going to go tell people what I'm proud about. And I'm proud about the nuclear family, the traditional family, and our conservative family values.
All right. Well, fantastic. I love that. Okay. How can people get involved, specifically maybe in Ada County? How can they get in touch with you? Where can they find you and volunteer or run for a committee seat? Like how can we get that going?
Yeah, that is really my portfolio within the Ada County Republican Party. Like I said, we have 3 vice chairs. We kind of split the work. And my primary duties are to recruit, train, and organize precinct committeemen within the party and their volunteers that they work with. And so I'm the recruiter. Come to me. I want to get you involved. You can find me on Twitter at Spoon for Idaho. You can email me at ryan.spoon@spoonforidaho.com. You can find me on Facebook. I have a Ryan Spoon for Idaho Facebook page. And there's even, I believe that my phone number is still on my old campaign website from my CWI campaign. Lots of different ways to get in touch with me, or just come to our meeting every first Thursday, every single month, except sometimes in the summer when we take off. But every first Thursday, Ada County Courthouse, 6:30 p.m. Come to the commissioner's meeting room. I'll be there. I'm a rather big guy, so I'm hard to miss. Come shake my hand and let's find out how to save Idaho.
Fantastic. All right, Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time out to come on today. And I look forward to having you back and discussing more of these issues.
Great. Thank you for having me, Matt.
Great. All right, folks. We are going to end the show today. I thank you so much for joining us. We went through a lot, and I can't wait to get these things clipped, get these things shared. That's the point of this entire show here, is to make sure that these messages get out there, that they break through the noise. There's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of just, when you're online, when you're on different social media, when you're walking around town, when you're discussing things, reading the newspapers, whatever it is, you're inundated with so much noise that you kind of forget where your North Star is. And we want to make sure that we can bring on activists, we can bring on legislators, we can bring on folks that are working hard because they have a passion for liberty, they have a passion for freedom, they have a passion for, protecting our innocent children and really enhancing the quality of life here in Idaho. So please, if you like what you're watching, share it. That's the best thing you can do, is share these clips, get folks to join our social media. You find us on Rumble, on YouTube, on Facebook, on X, on Telegram, wherever you're watching it, share the links. If you want to support even further, idahosignal.com. You can head over there and find out how you can support us, whether it's through just a donation, whether it's through a sponsorship. Please do so there. Okay. Yeah, that's it for today. I got nothing else. We will see you back here tomorrow, and we're working on a fantastic show for next week as well. So that's it. Thanks, folks. See you next time.
This bill, I think, it puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.